podcast on real relationships. My name is Sophie and I am a relationship expert, international speaker, and best-selling author of Your Other Half. I decided to start this podcast because, in my opinion, relationships are currently not being portrayed as what they really are. Whether you're watching the news, TV in general, or on social media, the perception given to people is wrong, and my aim is to talk about what happens in the real world, talk about real stories, and listen to what real people think, do, and go through, as opposed to creating expectation of something that doesn't exist. And this is particularly true of single people in the dating game, for want of a better words. The expectations sometimes are a little bit warped, if I'm honest, or unrealistic. So I may not agree with everything that is said by my guests, but it is their chance to express their opinions and their stories. So here today we have, funny enough, talking about dating and social anxiety, John V. Denley. So, hi, John.
Hello, Sophie. How you doing?
I'm all right, thank you.
Again.
Yes. So, tell me a little bit about yourself.
So my background is an IT consultant, and I'm now a mental wellness trainer. So I teach people how to understand how their brains work a bit better. And I'm a student of neuropsychology, so I help people to understand how to potentially rewire their brains to what I class as being supercharge their mental fitness. That's kind of the tagline that I'm talking about at the moment. So that's what I do right now.
And how long have you been single for?
It depends on what you define as single, of course, but in any kind of significant relationship, it's been about 11 years now. So 2008. So so 10, 11 years, something like that. You lose track a little bit when it's been that long.
And what are you actually looking for?
That's a tough question, isn't it? I'd love to find somebody that I can settle down with and spend the rest of my life with, have some children, and travel the world with as well, which I know sounds like it's almost an opposite of each other. But I met somebody in 2016. Actually, I wrote a short story about it, which has just been published, which is kind of fun. So I'll give you the link of that so people can have a look at that if they want to. It's called Chance Encounter, and it was an American lady I met while I was walking across Spain. So in 2016, I did the Camino de Santiago, and I walked across Spain, and I met this girl on there, and we started talking about how you could bring up children even if you were traveling. And I quite like the idea of maybe doing that, where you're sort of traveling around the world, and because obviously until a child is 5, they don't go to school anyway. So you could still have loads of experiences and traveling for at least the first 5 years of that situation. I've really gone off on one now, haven't I?
You can also home educate them anyway.
Yeah, I was just talking to a friend. I think it was last night, actually. No, the night before last, and she was talking about home educating. But she was saying that she was slightly worried about home educating because there's such a sort of stigma around it from some people, people frowning down on it. It's like, well, yeah, all right, but then you look at the school system right now. There's a guy called Prince A, or Prince A. I don't know what his name is, but he has this really kind of cool thing where he talks about how the school system is broken and fundamentally not useful for people anymore because it's designed to create factory workers, and we just don't have that kind of requirement for human beings anymore. So that's ideally what I'm looking for. My problem, to a certain extent, and this is a weird one, is that I'm starting to get a little bit older now, and obviously if I still want to have children, then I'm looking for somebody who's kind of under 40-ish, because of course for women then that is the sort of body clock ticking. So I say to people, I have a biological clock ticking too. It's just a different type of thing than it is for a woman. And they say, but men can have children until they're 70. And I was like, but I still have to find a woman at 70 who can still have a child, so they're going to be under 40, and they're going to still have to be attracted to me at 70, and that's going to get difficult unless I've got lots of money. But then, do they love me for my money, or do they love me for me? It's a good question.
It's an interesting point that men should have a biological clock too, and I think quite a few do actually. I've got a number of people I know who are men and approaching 40 and thinking I need to get on with it, sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So what have you tried to meet that person?
I many years ago I tried things like Match.com and online dating. Now, obviously, we've talked in a previous podcast or a future podcast, depending on which order you do them in, about how I used to have fairly significant social anxiety and how I developed a phobia of talking to girls in bars and pubs and so forth. So it became really, really difficult for me to try and go through the sort of traditional way of meeting people. So I tried online dating, and I had no luck with it at all. I spent years on Match.com, and I probably had maybe 2 or 3 dates in all that time. And I messaged thousands and thousands of people and just got no replies. It was a total waste of time. Somebody recently said to me, you should try Plenty of Fish. So I did. I joined Plenty of Fish, and they said, oh, there's loads of people on there, and they're all interacting. And I was like, great. So I joined, and I got maybe 1 date. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what I was doing wrong. Maybe I've often been told I'm too honest. So there's maybe that. But then again, I always think to myself, that's a weird thing. I've been told a few times that in photographs I look older than I am, but in real life I act a lot younger than I am. So that's definitely something that's working against me, because you kind of have to meet me and spend some time with me to understand that I'm really not as old as I sound, or as old as
to be fair, I think you can do that by managing expectations in the profile. I think, unfortunately, a number of people, if you read the profile, they all look the same.
Yeah. And that's the problem. And I think that's the problem, is that because I was told many times that I should just lie about my age, and I should say, well, I know exactly. And my feeling on that was, yeah, but that's starting a relationship on a really, really bad place, because you're starting with a lie. That can't be the way to do things at all. But then you've also got the problem that, well, if I'm looking for somebody who's under 40 and their profile expectations are, I'll only date somebody up to the age of 42, and I'm say I'm 43, I'm not 43, but let's just say I am for a second. I'm not even going to, all those women are not even going to look at my profile.
There's a couple of things here. The first one is, well, actually, a couple of personal stories. I remember years ago, I went speed dating, which instantly, if you've never done it before, it's got to be done.
No, I've done it. I've done it several times. I was
sort of thing. But I went to the group, which was whatever age, but I know that he finished at 38. And I met this chap, and it was quite obvious from the way he looked and stuff that it was towards the end of the age range, say.
Yeah, right.
That's an issue. And we met up again, obviously for first date or whatever, and actually he was 44.
Yeah.
And I said to him, oh, but the group was like up to 38, and he said, yeah, but 44, if I go to the one that's my range and ending up at 54, I want to have kids, and I'm not going to find someone there who's going to want that. And I was like, I get that, but at the same time, I felt a little bit cheated that he was, at that point, a lot older than me. Now, age ranges on the line. Also, so a few years later, I met a chap in a social environment, and he was actually 13 years older than me.
Yeah.
We ended up having a 2-year relationship, and he's probably one of my best friends seeing now.
Yeah.
I found him in, an online dating environment, because he was like 7 years out, if that makes sense.
Out of your range. Totally.
One thing I want to say about online dating is, it's a bit like when you're looking for a job. You put your CV online, and it's pretty much what it is. You're putting your CV online and seeing what happens. And I think that a lot of single people sometimes forget there are other ways to meet people, but they're not open to opportunities necessarily, or they're a bit blinkered. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, and I've had the exact same experiences as you were just describing with speed dating. I have a friend who runs speed dating events, and she used to ask me on a regular basis to be an extra man because there weren't enough men. But the same problem occurred, is that the age ranges was 28 to 38 or something else, and then it was 38 to 54 or something, and I'm like, well, I'm over 38, but there's no way I'm going in the 38 to 54, because all the women will be 45 plus in there, and that's not going to be of interest to me at all. So I had exactly the same problem.
You make an interesting point, because before doing what I'm doing now, I used to run events for single people, and the thing about not having enough men Let me tell you why that happens, because I've obviously seen the patterns. Basically, men book by themselves. They turn up and they do things on their own. Women, we book, I'm generalising, but as a rule, 90% of women, we book as a minimum of 2 and up to a group of 10. So you've got an imbalance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because we wouldn't go with a group of men to a dating speed dating thing. It's an interesting thing actually, because we were talking again on the previous conversation about social conditioning for men and talking about depression, for example. That was something we were talking about previously, and about men not showing their emotions. And actually, I think it's possibly part of that same social conditioning. Is like, we don't do that sort of thing together. Really, it's just part of what you just don't do. It's almost like you don't admit that you're single, kind of thing. That's kind of what's going on in your head there a little bit.
I personally don't see it as social conditioning. For me, it goes back to the animal behaviour that's still within us, which is that I need to show the male next to me that I am bigger and tougher than he is, so that I can keep the prize of the female. And we may have advanced in so many ways, but these instincts are still there purely for us to reproduce. And
well, actually, you're absolutely right there. And of course, you're completely right. Now I think about it, I think, you're absolutely right, because you want to go along as a single man, and you want all the women to be yours.
And you want your mate.
You want all of the women. You don't want anybody else having any of them. That's a weird way of thinking about it, but it's true. True.
It is. It's a natural instinct thing. You want basically.
Yeah.
So, is there anything that you haven't tried or that you want to try?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure there is anything I haven't tried. Although I haven't done that whole thing where you pay somebody a significant amount of money as a dating matchmaker. Yeah, that sort of thing. Where I haven't done any of that kind of stuff.
Have you ever thought of a dating coach?
I didn't even know there was such a thing as a dating coach until you exactly until you introduced yourself to me. Didn't even know there was such a thing. Although obviously there's coaches, there are coaches for men as to how to be better with women, because actually that's what I did, and I know they have a very bad reputation.
And I can you've seen I've got a massive thing about that, because basically what we teach you to do is how to. I'm not even going to say pick up women, because they do the same thing with women. They teach them how to pick their hair and do this and the other, and it isn't how it works. It really isn't works. There are different levels without any shadow of a doubt, and there are people who do it and do it bad. Well, not badly, but they do it manipulatively, I suppose. And you might meet people, you might get dates, you might get laid. But if what you want ultimately is the right person for you, that's not the right way to do it.
Well, it's interesting because when I first started looking into this stuff about how to be better with women, because that's where I was struggling. I went to London to go on one of these courses that you might be thinking about, but actually there was 2 parts to it, and there was so the first part was actually used NLP as a technique for overcoming approach anxiety, because that was what I was struggling with, was the little voice inside my head telling me that I'm going to get rejected and I haven't got anything interesting to say and all that kind of stuff. That was playing on my mind and causing me real problems. So we did some NLP techniques to overcome that, and that was fantastic. And that was my first exposure to NLP. This is kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing right now, because I saw how powerful it was to understand the psychology of what's going on inside your head. But then the second part of that process was teaching guys how to be more confident, how to understand what's going on in a social environment better. So they were talking about how to recognize when a girl is actually showing you that she's interested, versus a girl showing you she's not interested, for example, and how to dance, and how to do that social dancing stuff, how to dress nicely. Because there were some guys in the room who just didn't know how to dress at all. It was just like, oh, no wonder you're not getting any luck. And then it was like how to have a conversation. So they were teaching us like techniques as to how to make sure that you can have a conversation, listening techniques as well, how to listen to somebody and pick up on their little body language, so that when you can tell that when they're nodding at you like you're doing to me right now. I know we're on a podcast, but I'm looking at you in one. I can see that you're interested and you're listening to what I'm saying. You're giving me positive feedback that what I'm saying is okay.
This kind of stuff, is what I do. So I haven't got a problem with that. The ones that I really struggle with, and I am passionate about it, because I think that they're setting up people with the wrong expectations for really starters. But to me, and first we need to understand why you're single, because there is a reason. And yes, sometimes it's as easy as you say, changing what people are wearing or getting them a haircut. But a lot of the time, it's also because of what's happened either in the past or whatever is holding them back. So you need to understand that. Then you need to deal with it. And only then are you ready to start looking at, a potential partner. But the idea is, for me, is not just to get anyone, but you've got to find the right person for you that is going to work for you and, and with you. Your life without being just your life. And I think this is another issue maybe with single people. They're looking for someone to come and save them in a way because they're not happy in their own skin.
Yes, I completely agree with you there. I mean, a lot of people will say, and I've heard this a lot said to me, is, John, you need to learn to love yourself before anybody else can love you. And that kind of, so that's like, well, that's quite a hard one to get to overcome, because, and for me, a lot of the problems in there is that part of the reason I don't love myself is because I don't feel like I'm being loved by anybody else. So it's like, well, there's a chicken and egg situation going on there a little bit. I don't, it's like, how can I love myself if nobody else loves me? But nobody else can love you until you love yourself. Oh, well, I have no idea what to do with that. Then I'm stuck.
So you see, this is where you're validating your worth against the fact that there's one person that's chosen to spend part of their life with you. And really, it's not, the safe love is something that's quite difficult. A lot of people struggle with that because we also associate that with being selfish, and maybe, you're brought up to you need to be humble, you need to be this, and then the next minute you need to love yourself, and you're like, I don't do that. But for me, it's more about not relying on somebody else. And yes, you need to be happy single.
Yeah.
And being happy single is the key to being happy in a relationship. You've got to be okay in your own skin. And being okay in your own skin is self-love, in essence.
Yeah.
And
also,
being, happy on your own, because sometimes it's not right to be with somebody else.
Right, totally. And a lot, and this is that's very much a line you will hear from a lot of women, and not a lot of men, because it's like, it's better to be alone than be with the wrong person. It is, from my perspective, is very much a female phrase, because a man would much. It's like kind of what we were saying before about, a man goes into a speed dating event, he wants all the women. It's like, so that they're all saying, well, I'd rather be with somebody than be alone, and that's certainly how I have an inner feeling which kind of says, I don't want to be alone, I want to be with somebody. But on the other hand, I don't want to be with the wrong person, because I have also been with the wrong person, and I know what that feels like. But on the other hand, somebody also asked me this recently. I said, have you ever been with the wrong person? I can't remember what the question was, but basically I just said, well, even when I was with the wrong person, I still felt nice because I was with somebody, and I wasn't alone. So I'd rather be not lonely than lonely as well. So there's kind of a dichotomy going on there. But having said all of that, you're totally right in that being comfortable with yourself and being happy with yourself is without a doubt a key. And then having the confidence to be on your own and say no as well. So, because it's very easy as a guy, if a girl comes on to you, to just go, oh great, especially if you're single and you're like, oh fantastic, yes, definitely, please say yes, because oh my god, a girl's interested in me, this is brilliant. But that's the point at which you have to say, actually, no, you're not right for me. This isn't right going forward. So, and then that's that confidence that's coming from inside you. And I think once you get to that point where you have that confidence, that's when you start to shine and you start to become more attractive. So I feel like I've just turned this corner literally in the last 2 or 3 weeks, weirdly. And I don't know what happened. I don't know what's changed. But I've suddenly started getting a lot more interest, I guess, in me as a person. I don't quite know where that's come from, but it's kind of weird.
Sometimes it is what you just said. You've turned a corner unconsciously. And for instance, one of the people I helped, he had no problem getting dates whatsoever, but they went right. So it was all very unfulfilling, really.
Right.
He met someone that was a bit special to him, and it didn't work out. And it's only when we worked together and he made the decision to stop looking and work on himself.
Yeah.
And through that work, that he became ready and met the right person.
I think I might have just figured it out actually, because I've just started working with an NLP practitioner myself, because I'm an NLP practitioner myself, and I know that you are as well. But I just started working with a lady called Vicky Henderson, and she's been doing timeline therapy on me. I don't know how much you know about that, but that was actually the thing that I did first when I did my approach anxiety. That's the first thing I did, was that we did it in a slightly different way back then. But what she's been doing with me is letting go of things like anger and fear and loss and things like that. I can't remember there's 5 of them apparently you're supposed to go through. We've done 2 or 3 of them, but it's just occurred to me that I did that 2 or 3 weeks ago, and maybe that was the thing that turned the corner, as I suddenly started letting go of some old stories that I've been hanging on to, that I didn't realise I was hanging on to.
The other thing as well sometimes that we don't always appreciate, because we all want everything now, especially now. You've got Amazon Prime, where you just press a button and the man turns up like half an hour later at your door with the thing that you wanted. But sometimes it is a journey. And for instance, without getting into too many details, I was due to go to hospital yesterday for a biopsy, and I did go, but I didn't get the biopsy. But because of that, I had a conversation, and I found out something very crucial that actually explains so much about my life.
Right.
And something that I wasn't aware was a problem, but now I understand where, a lot of things and behaviours came from.
Right,
and it was surrounding my birth.
Yeah.
So sometimes, why didn't I find this out 3 years ago, 10 years ago, when I was 5? Do you know what I mean? It would upset so many situations, for want of better words. But I guess if I'd not been through these situations, I probably could not recognise them in others, and I could not help people in the way that I do.
Yeah, that's a really tricky one as well, isn't it? Because we are where we are now because of all the things that have happened to us in the past. I mean, it's like we were talking on the other podcast about me struggling with depression for like 10, 15 years. And now I'm in a position where I can help other people to shortcut that process, and I can help them do it in a short period of time. And then you asked me the question and said, so what do you think, what would have helped you to have solved the problem earlier, I guess? And I said, I wish I'd met me at the beginning of my journey. But of course, if I had met somebody like me at the beginning of my journey, I then may not have had the journey. I wouldn't be who I am now. I wouldn't be able to help other people. It's like, oh my God, this is bizarre. It's like, would I have preferred to have not been depressed for 15 years? Or would I have preferred to do what I'm doing now, helping people? Would I have been doing this now, even if I had? Who knows? But again, this is what we were talking about before, about looking back on the past and spending too much time looking at the past. It's no good. There's no point. It's gone. You can't do anything about it.
It's not so much looking at the past. Sometimes it is. I mean, the last 4 years for me, I've been a little bit like, you couldn't make it up. And the last 12 months especially, you really could not make it up. But without that, because it's making me take a sideline direction at the moment, because I'm creating something that is relating to all these issues, because I've realised that actually there's a massive problem, not just in this country, globally. And if it wasn't for me going through this and being the person that I am, who speaks up a bit too much and, when I was in the corporate employed world, I was a person who would wind up to go into a meeting to say what was wrong and blah, blah, blah. So I'm now back in that position, but if it wasn't for the experience of the last 18 months, I wouldn't be doing it. And yes, I wouldn't go back for it in a hurry. And actually, there's bits that are in the future that I'm not looking forward to, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
All I can do is control the way I respond to it in the same way you did.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. And just move forward. Yeah, and which is actually interesting because it's almost back to how did I overcome the problems and how did I move forward? Which I think was one of the questions you were asking me earlier on. I've lost track now as to the thread of what we were talking about. But when I went up to London, because we got distracted on the whole pickup artist issue, as it were. But when I did go up to London, the second day that we talked about, which is all about body language and communication and conversations and so forth, that was significantly useful for me. And that's when I met a guy called Matt Hussey. So he's big in America right now, but he now teaches girls how to get guys. It's actually called, I think it's called Get the Guy or Meet the Guy or Get the Guy. I think it actually is what it is. He's got an American TV show over there. So he was one of the guys who I worked with in those early days, and he was teaching me all about how to interact better with other people, with people in general, not just women, but just how to have a conversation with somebody and not have any expectations. And the key thing I picked up from that morning, which is so tips for anybody listening, was to not have any expectations of the outcome. So if you're having an interaction with somebody and having a nice conversation with them, just enjoy the conversation, just enjoy the moment, relax. Don't worry about whether or not it's going to turn into anything, or whether or not you're going to get a kiss, or you're going to get a number at the end, or whatever. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Just enjoy the conversation. And if it goes somewhere, it will go somewhere, and it'll be obvious.
I could go on about them, but they are the all evil in a way.
Totally.
There's something that's not voiced, there's something that are not realistic, and as you say, then people forget to enjoy the journey. They just keep on worrying about what's going to happen in the future, and then probably self-fulfilling prophecy of making it not happen anyway.
Yeah.
So, anyway, what would you say you have learned along the way of your dating journey?
Well, that was the biggest point. Really, is not having any expectations about the outcome. Without a doubt, that was the biggest thing I ever learned. But having said that, there are 2 or 3 things before that as well, which is to dress like you're expecting to meet somebody, which is always good, and always be clean and take care of yourself, because you never know who's going to see you, or who's going to interact with you, or who you're going to bump into, because you could bump into anybody at any time. And wouldn't it be nice if you were actually presentable and not just being a slob? But to be fair, also to a certain extent, be yourself. So if you don't worry about it too much, because I know certainly from women's perspective, they're like, oh, I won't go out without my makeup on. Well, yeah, that's all very well, but actually, I like a lady who looks good without her makeup on. So when I see a photo, there was a friend of mine, well, I say friend, somebody I follow on Instagram, and she posted a photograph of herself with no makeup. And I replied back to her post saying, oh my God, you look fantastic with no makeup. It's amazing. And then she posted the next photograph, which was after she'd been to a makeup artist because she was at a photo shoot. Mm-hmm. And she had all this makeup on and her hair was done and everything, and I replied back saying, I prefer the one with no makeup. I think you look better with no makeup on.
Makeup is something that's there to enhance features. It's more new. I like quite natural makeup, but some people really they've got a clown outfit. It's been drawn on. Do you know what I mean? Especially this fad at the moment of fake really eyebrows.
Oh my Lord!
It looks like someone's taking a permanent marker. And anyway, we're done.
Don't get me started. Yeah.
I know. Totally. Just to wrap this up, any regrets?
Oh God, that's a horrible question. Have I? Yeah, probably got lots of regrets, but none that I really want to talk about.
That's fair enough.
I would say not really. I kind of wish. I suppose I wish I'd learnt more about how to date better when I was younger. I wish I'd met somebody maybe a dating coach, for example, when I was mid-20s, early 30s, just to help me understand interactions better and understand the female perspective a lot better as well. That was another thing that I never really kind of understood what a woman is looking for, and what they're interested in. But actually, I think probably, kind of like I was just saying before, is that the key thing was how to have a conversation, how to have a free and easy conversation with somebody. One of the things they talked about, and actually you saw this with a lot of the men on that course that I was on, was that they spent so much time trying to think of the next interesting question that they were going to ask, that they weren't listening to the conversation that was being spoken to them about.
Yeah.
So the girl would say something, and then the guy would ask the next question, which was completely unrelated to whatever it was the girl was asking a question about. You're just like, well, why didn't you ask her about what she was just talking about? Because she's clearly excited about whatever it was she was talking about, and you could have a whole conversation just by saying, so tell me more about that, or how did that make you feel, and questions like that. And then the girl will just chat and chat. And the funny thing about that, the brilliant bit about that whole thing, it was the number of times that we talk to somebody and have a conversation with them. We talk to somebody and we would ask them all questions and we get them to talk, and they would talk like 60%, well, probably like 80% of the time they would be talking. And then you'd ask the question afterwards. So how was it? Oh, he was a really friendly guy. I really liked him. Yeah, it was really interesting. So what did he tell you about himself? Right. And then they say, so what did he tell you about yourself? He said, I don't know. I don't think he said anything about himself. It was just like, oh my God. So she thought I was amazing, but I said nothing about me at all, which is really interesting because that creates intrigue to a certain extent, which is one of the things that I find that women like a lot of, is when a guy is kind of a little bit intriguing, a little bit hard to gauge. Whereas I'm very honest, which is what I was saying earlier about, I'm sometimes told I'm too honest. So I'll blurt out all the information too early. And there's no intrigue and no interest. There's no there's no mystery at all.
You need a little bit of mystery, but I think there's nothing wrong with being honest. Maybe just like, drip feed the information, and if you know that's something that you do, you need to just prepare for it. But anyway, unfortunately, all what we've got time for.
That's all right. We could go on for hours.
I know. Thank you so much. It was lovely talking to you. And for you,
it's lovely talking to you.
Thank you. If you enjoyed the show, then please subscribe, give us a review, and more importantly, come back for the next episode. Thank you.